We live. We live. We live right now. Today is Friday, February 9th. No, it is not February 9th. It is May 9th, 2025. We're doing pretty good right now. This one's going to be fun. All of them are mostly fun. I do love, you may be asking, like, why does he have so many random different topics about coffee? Because I think about coffee all the time. And I'm always wondering what I'm going to be talking about in these talks. And don't get me wrong, I do like the other stuff too, like the thought out YouTube videos and all that stuff. But these talks, these podcasts, these interesting takes on things, these are kind of more so, these are fun. These are a lot of fun. Okay, so today's topic, let me get my stuff. Here it is. Common rules beginners are taught in specialty coffee. Let's just say coffee in general. You know, it's especially coffee standards, right? But we're going to talk through these. It's about 20 of them. Hopefully it's not 20 minutes of me rambling about what I do, what I don't do, and why I don't do it, and all that stuff now, or why I still do it. So let's go through the first one. Always grind fresh right before brewing. I was anal about that one. I know I was really big on that whole thing, and it's really important. It's really critical. But now since I actually roast my coffee, it is critical, but a lot of times the coffees are extremely fresh. So sometimes I will grind the coffees a day or two ahead, just depending on the situation, if I'm just impatient to taste it. But I don't really do that. I still kind of mostly do that right before I actually brew. So that was a good one. Use a burr grinder, not a blade grinder. Yep. Still do that. Still use a burr grinder. More of a flat burr grinder person than a conical. I have had some conicals. I do have a conical for my two hand grinders. I still have my other grinder that's in the garage now. Forgot the name of it. But I'm a flat burr grinder kind of person. I do notice a difference in it, but I am liking the way my coffees are coming out on the hand grinder too. So, but blade grinder? Blade grinder. Not really, not much. I will always tell people to start off with a burr grinder because a blade grinder is just inconsistent. And almost instantly you'll taste the difference between a burr grinder versus a blade grinder. And sometimes people don't want to spend money on grinders, which is interesting. I mean, you're almost there. You're almost there, right? But it's just that convenience thing, which is perfectly fine. You know, I actually find that some of my better clients are people who like their coffee ground. Maybe a story for another day, but that's what I've noticed. Stick to a precise brew ratio. I kind of do. I kind of play around with it. I was starting off like a 1-18 ratio person. And then the coffee started tasting like crap. And then I started going down to the extreme part of 1-10, 1-8, 1-9. And for many years now, I've really settled on the 1-15 ratio. I've been playing around with 1-16, which does a really good job too. But yeah, I think the reason why I think it's important or critical is because it's good to be consistent. I mean, bottom line, I think that's the really biggest thing about it. It's about being consistent. You know how your coffee is going to taste more so, depending on the grind size, depending on the roast degree. But for the most part, that's the part that's familiar to you. Different coffees may cause for different ratios. But for the most part, that's kind of like where my sweet happy spot is. I don't know about you, but what about you? Weigh both coffee and water with a scale. Yeah, that's not going away. Like I said, I've done it many times to where I've still measured, meaning that I'll have like a scoop or two to kind of keep my measurements right. And then I'll probably have a cup to where I actually do some measurements out of the Mr. Coffee machine. Or I just use the little scales that's on the actual carafe. But yeah, I'm going to measure all the time. It's just it's part of that whole consistency thing. But don't get me wrong, there's been times where I just put it together and just kind of hope for the best. And for the most part, it's fine. It'll work, you know. Use filtered water. Well, lately, it's past 5 months, I've been using back to using third wave water, which is cool. I like it a lot. It does help me to figure out what my coffees are. And it gives me an honest assessment of what I'm drinking. You know, I know you can go really crazy with it with different types of waters. And I've even played around with mixing the third wave waters depending on the situation, depending on the coffee, to kind of bring out different things. I do like playing and manipulating the whole coffee experience that way too. On the whole water temp, pouring technique, and also grind size and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think that's still critical in all of this. And I do taste the difference, especially if I switch back from time to time. If I'm making my wife's coffee, which I use tap water, which she doesn't care, so that's what I do for her. Number 6, use the right water temperature. I play around with that. Golden temp, as they say, is 195 to 205, which is kind of true. It kind of really does work out really well, but it's okay to play around with different things. I think lately I've been doing at 190 and even playing around with 185. As you know already, I played around with 150, 160. I think 160 is a really cool temperature. I don't really play around with anything above 205 lately. Not lately, but for a very long time. I used to play around, used to stay in a realm of 210, 211 quite a bit. And I may play around with that again, but I just do it today. We'll just see how it comes out. It's always good to just play and do different things. You don't know what you're going to really get out of these coffees sometimes when you kind of just do the same thing over and over again. So those are some of the things that I think about quite a bit when I'm brewing coffee. Anytime that I'm like, let me change it up here, you know? Let me see some of the things that I can do to kind of spice it up. I'm sure you go through that too. If you don't, let me know. If you do, let me know. Always bloom your coffee for 30, 45 seconds. Yeah, I kind of do that most of the time. Sometimes I forget and I go even longer, a minute and a half from time to time. But I tend to always mostly bloom my coffee. I didn't give a shit before until I did the experiment about blooming and then playing around with the Mr. Coffee and just playing around with different recipes that called for no blooms. I've noticed that the coffees are a lot more pronounced, more developed, more better to me. And I don't know why that is. And it's funny because I'm an engineer by trade and by play, if that makes any sense. But I'm always wondering why things are what they are. But at the end of the day, it kind of really doesn't matter. If it's better that way, it's better that way. So that's why I kind of do the things that I do. And I've noticed that the coffees are tasting a lot better for at least a 30 to 45, even a minute amount of time for a bloom. And then you pour the rest of your coffee, whichever recipe that you want to go about it. But I think have found a decent way to actually brew a cup of coffee without a bloom. But, you know, just depending on the coffee, it's hit or miss. All right. Pour control stages of pulses. Don't dump water in. Yeah, I'm still playing around with that. Lately, I've been doing like 4 to 5 pulses again. Just because I like a clean bed, just the way it looks. And I think the coffee does taste a little bit better. But I do want to do another experiment to where I'll do 2 to 3 pulses, see how the extraction is, see how the flavors is against my 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9 pulses. See if that matters. And I also want to play around with the letting it draw all the way down and there's nothing in the bed and then doing that again. Sometimes I get a little frightened if there's water not consistently on the bed. So I just want to see how it actually turns out. And I'll share that with you whenever I do that experiment of like pulsing, completely draw down, then waiting like 10 seconds and then kind of doing it again. So we'll see how that works and all that stuff, right? But pulsing and circle pour, center pour and all that stuff, I think it matters, but I don't think we need to be too anal about it because for the most part, the coffee is what it is, right? You can get different things out of the coffee, but at the end of the day, the way it's harvested, grown, processed, and roasted, at least for you at that time, that's just kind of like more so what it's going to turn out to. I mean, minus the whole French press and AeroPress type of thing. Again, I'm just talking. All right. Use a gooseneck kettle for precision. Yeah, I still do that. Why not? It works. Mostly, I'm a pour over guy, 80-90% pour over guy. Espresso once, twice a month. Sometimes I'll do a French press. Sometimes I do an AeroPress, but it's just easier just to use the gooseneck. And the fellow pro, whatever the hell it may be called, is awesome. I gotta say, that's one of my favorite kettles. I did have a Bonavita gooseneck. It worked really well. But the amount of precision and the amount of control that you can have with a kettle, and that's what it is. I don't even know why people do this. They like hold the kettle like this. It's just lift some weights. Just pour the kettle like a person that can hold it, no matter how heavy it is. But whatever. That's just me on my soapbox. What I see, specialty, a lot of people holding kettle kind of crazy. You don't need two hands on the kettle, just one. But yeah, you still need that. I think that's still critical. For the most part, I am going to be trying out a couple of brewers that are just single pour brewers, so I don't think the kettle matters as much. And we're going to see how it tastes. And I think those brewers are going to really be really good for a majority of people who just want that. They know it's better, like the pour over devices, but they don't want to do that whole ritual. So some kettles or whatever you may have may just be perfectly fine. Avoid dark roast and pour over. They're too early. Hell no. I love dark roast. I'm sorry. You can get a lot of sweetness out of dark roast. You can get a lot of character, flavor out of dark roast. Not all of them, but for the ones that are like the African, even some of the Colombian, some of the ones that are a little out there with their initial taste, you can get some decent flavors out of those. And no, I love dark roast. I actually like dark roast with the fast filter. Believe it or not, I like it more on the fast filter than on the whole light roast type of thing that people love to do. And yeah, I love it. It's great. It's great for pour over. I think people should experiment more with it a lot more, just because it's one of those things to where you don't know really what you're missing until you really try a decently roasted dark roast. And you can really play around with what you're tasting and all that stuff. And yeah, so I did stay away from it for a long time until I started to really enjoy dark roast. Light roast should be brewed with longer times. I don't know really what that means. Probably just take your time with the light roast, but I've noticed that light roast, you can extract it. So I think you can brew it whichever any way that you want to, and you can extract the duck out of it. Try not to curse as much. But yeah, you can roast the crap out of it. And when you roast the crap out of it, not roast, but extract the crap out of it, you can really get some interesting, complex acidity, not sweetness, at least to me. And yeah. So I think, I don't know, that whole long roast or long brew, wherever it comes from, it is kind of finicky. It is, I'm not going to lie. But at the end of the day, if you're able to extract it, you can kind of do more so the same things that you want to do, can do for coffee in general. So, all right. Use the right filter type of your brew method. Don't swap. I swap all the time. I think sometimes when you think about coffee sometimes and you have these rules and things that people tell you to do, don't tell you to do, kind of give you an idea of it, that's fine in the beginning. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things to where you're gonna have to trust yourself and push yourself and kind of get it to the place to where it does make sense for you to just get out of your comfort zone, because I think that's gonna be the biggest thing. And I think different filters, hell, you can use the Hario B60 for, I would say, 80-90% of the filters anyway. You know, you just put it in there, it fits, and then you can just make your coffee and just keep going from there. So I think experimenting, trying different things out helps out quite a bit. And it gets you out of the whole thing of just keep buying more gear. I buy a lot of gear, all these portable devices, all these different waters. Yes, I'm curious, but it also helps you out so you can make a more educated decision on if you want to buy it or not. So, but yeah, you can play around with filters. I think that's going to be the biggest things in everything that you do. Keep your brew time within a target range. 2 to 3 minutes. That's kind of good for 360. I think that's good to do and all that. But it's one of those things to where you don't have to do that all the time. It's a good measurement, especially people who don't have refractometers. I think that's critical in all the things that we're trying to do. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things to where taste your coffee. Do your own recipe. If you like it, great. If you don't, cool. If you want to grind finer, go finer. If you want to grind coarser, go finer. Go coarser. Just do what you need to. At the end of the day, it's about what you taste. It's not about what I think you need to taste. It's just more so the things that I believe that you probably want to taste in this whole thing. So that's more so the situation. Okay. Rinse your paper filters. Yeah, of course. Why not? But sometimes I don't care. Sometimes I'm just moving and grooving. And it is what it is. So I don't think you have to all the time. I think we're used to like what we're tasting. And we'll go from there, right? Don't stir or agitate too much. I don't even stir at all. I think it's been about 7, 8 years that I stopped stirring. If I'm doing like a challenge, I'll probably stir depending on the situation, depending on the constraints. But for the most part, you don't need to stir. Stirring is inconsistent. You may say you're counting 3 or 4 times, whatever, or you're gonna count seconds and all that stuff. It's not consistent. It throws you off too much, and I think that's one of the reasons why I stopped stirring. And it agitates the grinds a little bit too much too. So I don't think it's needed. I don't think people stir as much as they do or have done before in the past, but you don't need to. It's a waste of time. You can extract your coffee and then you can be more consistent. So I would say you don't need to stir if you still stir. But that's just me on my soapbox, right now. All right. Dialing your grind size based on methods. Coarse for French press, fine for espresso. Espresso, you got to play around with the espresso machine. You got to play around with the grinder. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to just work it the way that you need to for that particular situation, right? But for French press, a lot of times French press, I go fine. And I try to go as coarse as I can for V60. Again, taste, flavor, what are you getting out of the coffee? Those are the things that you can play around with. So I think it's very critical that you just play around with it, because at the end of the day, it's your mouth, it's your palate. So don't fall too close into those rules. Even if you don't have a refractometer, trust your palate. So yeah, I've stayed away from that for a very long time. I did feel a little apprehensive about it, but now I do what I need to for whatever I want to taste in a cup of coffee. TDS and extraction percentage define a good cup. No, it helps you out to kind of define what is sour, what is better. But then after a while, you start to taste what you want to taste or push the coffee the way you want to push it. So I think it helps out initially to kind of give you a good starting place of like, okay, this is what I'm tasting and everything. But it does help, but don't depend on it. I use it all the time, but I don't use it as much as you may think I do, just because I just want to see where things at from time to time, especially when I'm doing like a failure challenge or a challenge in general, just to see if giving you that correlation of extraction and flavor, see where it relates. But I've been doing a lot better about understanding coffees with my palate, even more so, of knowing what is bitterness, what is sourness, what is just what that coffee tastes like. So there we go. All right. Never heat your coffee. It ruins your flavor. I mean, yeah, I don't really do that. I like it when it's cold anyway, or when it's room temp. But I never really heat up coffee. I did it once before, and it did actually help out quite a bit when I did like a cold brew type of challenge. But it doesn't matter. If you want to heat up your coffee, heat up your coffee. It's your coffee. So we're almost done. Don't brew with pre-ground coffee. It's stale. Just use what you got. If you have pre-ground coffee, just deal with it. If you like it, you like it. But I will say this, more than likely, if it is pre-ground, you're probably going to have to actually add a little bit more coffee in order to get some more flavors out of it, because you don't know actually how long it's been sitting there. A lot of times, especially with older coffee, that's one of the things I have noticed, is that in order to get that flavor back, you're going to have to actually brew a harder concentrated coffee, which is perfectly fine, because you're still going to get the flavors and everything that you want out of it. If you do it that way, it's still going to be lackluster, but just if you have pre-ground, just do it and see what you like about it, see what you don't like about it, and keep it going. Okay, here's the last one. Only use freshly roasted coffee. Nah, that's not true. 7 to 21 days. Coffee doesn't really start getting good to 7 to 10 days. And a lot of times if you have it too early, you're like wondering what the hell it is. Some coffees are better than others, but sometimes even a month even to 2. I've tried coffee off roast for like 4, 6, 9 months here and there. I won't say go that far. If you're going to have to go that far, go ahead and freeze it and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes we get too crazy with this whole freshly roasted type of thing, and it's very critical. It's very important. Yeah, we want that to be as fresh as we can. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things to where you kind of use what you have, and for the most part, it is fresh. So I can roast coffee anytime I want to. A lot of times I don't even look at roast dates on bags if I actually buy them, which is kind of weird, but it needs that time to kind of like get good, degas and all that. So I would say that's more so like a myth. You do want to know, have an indication how fresh your coffee is to see what you can and cannot do with it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because if you already have it, you're going to brew it. And when you brew it, you're going to play around, experiment, do different things like that to kind of bring the best out of the coffee anyway. So this is a long one. Hopefully I can cut it down, but we'll see. But this is Oki at Everyday Beans. And I like this. Probably next time I'll do like 10 minutes. I mean, not 10 minutes, 10 questions. And then we'll chop it up and go from there. But these are a lot of fun. So let me know what you think. Let me know the things that you do or don't do. And then we'll go from there. But at the end of the day, it's your coffee. And we're talking about coffee. So talk to you later. Bye.